Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nazir Afal. I'm the CEO and founder at Resemble Systems. This is our first webinar of 2021, and I don't think we have a better topic than talking about how we do our projects, how we manage our projects, right? So we have selected this topic based on our last 10 years of experience in managing projects across the region for various different type of customers and various different types of delivery model, various different types of methodology, and so on. So we were actually discussing internally last week, and we thought, why don't we introduce the agile scrum methodology and really differentiate the pros and cons of the whichever methodology you're following today, and what is the benefit if you follow agile scrum methodology and so on. So we thought, okay, why don't we put together some interesting content and then introduce a series of webinar. And today is the first series, and I think in the next 45 minutes or so, you're going to get a sort of high level overview. And then we will also get into series 1, series 2, series 3, and so on in the coming weeks, so that you will have a continuity and you will have a full understanding. And the webinar is fully recorded, so in case your colleagues are have missed this webinar, they can also replay. So with that, I would like to quickly walk you through the agenda. So Waji, if you can go to the next. So our speaker for today is Mohammed Waji. He's our senior project manager. At Resemble Systems, we also always try to improve and enhance the way we have been managing our projects or our customer projects. So now our PMO department actually has been really strengthened in the last 6 months or so. So Waji and his team is actually giving away a lot of content, a lot of information. So I would encourage all of you to feel free to engage with Waji, ask questions, and you can always stop him. You can use the raise hand button there on the Zoom. So this is the agenda quickly. He's going to walk you through waterfall approach, agile approach, and really, as I mentioned, the difference between these two approach and what are the real pros and cons, and the traditional contracts and agile contracts. At the end, after 40 minutes, we'll have a Q&A session. Of course, you can type any questions you may have during the session in the Q&A chat window, or if you have other questions at that time, you can also speak to Waji and get all your questions clarified. So with that introduction, I would like to leave the floor to Waji to get started. So Waji, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nazir. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar on Agile. Before we get started, there's a quick poll that you'd want to run to understand what kind of project methodology is followed in your respective organizations, in your companies, so that we get an idea of who the audience is, and and then we can probably drive the seminar, the webinar accordingly. So I'm launching a quick poll here. Let me know if you're able to see the poll. Probably let's take a minute, just so I can see people started putting on it. So the question here is that what is the project methodology which is currently used in your organization? So is it waterfall, is it agile, or you're really not sure of what is happening?
I think we have the responses. So what I see here is the 64%, 7 out of 11 people who joined the webinar say that they follow waterfall methodology. Three responses say that they follow agile, which is about 25%, and about 2 people are really not sure of what is going on. So I think this is a good poll. I'm ending the poll right now. So what we see here is that about 65-67% people use waterfall. So I think this is a good start for us. Um, let's get started, the first topic for the day, which is a waterfall approach.
So before we get started, a quick moment to think that what is project management and what has been happening previously before we really got into a proper discipline such as project management, right? Using waterfall or agile. What was happening earlier. So some kind of planning and development was happening, right? For example, if you go back 2,500 years to the great pyramid of Giza, there are historians who say that each level, each layer or the level of the pyramid was planned by different engineers or different people designed, because the way it has been designed, it clearly showed it is not a single person who's done it. So we can assume that a lot of planning, a lot of architecture was already in place during those times. Taking another example of Great Wall of China, right? There are facts which suggest that there were three kind of groups which built this entire wall, right? One was the soldiers, the other was the general public, which were the laborers, and the third were criminals. So you can imagine this was, we are talking thousands of years back. So this planning, of building, of completing a project. So what is a project? Something that has a definite start and a end, right? We want to achieve something. We want to achieve some kind of an objective, some kind of a result at the end. So the planning has been going on for for thousands of years. It is just that very recently, during the late 18th century and the early 19th centuries, when we started having a proper discipline such as project management, and people started doing research and started publishing articles on how do we do the best, to achieve that goal. So one of the earliest methodologies is the waterfall methodology. Let's talk a little about it, the advantages and disadvantages. So, just before we come here, to give you, of how, what was the early research or the early project management, how did it start? So, early 1920s, there was a person by the name Henry Gantt, right? So, he introduced something called Gantt chart. So, people who are in, in project management field or in any general, planning field will immediately recognize this. Gantt is something which gives a pictorial view of what is the current progress of the project and what are some dependencies, what happens before and after, right? So this happened in 1920. So it goes on. So it started evolving from there. In 1950s, we had the US Department, introduce something called work breakdown structure, which means that if there is an activity, how are we trying to achieve that activity, right? We break it down, and then we further break it down, until that last level. The last level is called the task or an activity level, right? So this was introduced in the 1950s. And then in 1969, there was something very important that happened, right? They formed an institute called Project Management Institute, right? Which is known as PMI. So that was a very, very important milestone, wherein they set up a non-profit organization to support projects and the way the projects are done and delivered. So this is one important milestone. We will also talk about what happened in 2001, right, which was a revolution in terms of the way we approach project management, which was agile. We will talk about it a little later. So with the same evolution that was happening in 1970, there was a scientist called Winston Royce who wrote an article called managing the development of large software projects. So basically, he was trying to put down on how the projects were performed, right? Software projects. Just before I move on, we are talking about how the projects are delivered in a software and IT environment. But this topic mostly will also resonate with people who are from non-IT, right? They'll be able to relate and understand how it happens, right? So coming back, so he wrote an article where he described the different phases of what happens in a software life cycle. So he did not term the word waterfall, but then this was later coined, and then it was attributed to him that he was the father of this, right? So what happens in a waterfall model? So if you see here on the screen, right, in the presentation, the entire project, the software project, or for that matter any project, is divided or categorized into different phases, right? The first phase generally is where we try to understand what the requirements are, what the client wants, what is an end objective, what is the business value that we are trying to achieve out of this. And then once we finish with that, right, there are a lot of sign offs that happen, right? A lot of contracts are made that this is what we want to deliver at the end. Once we finish that, we move on to the next design, wherein we design the architecture, we design the visual diagrams, we have the visual form of how the end product will look, and then we move on to coding, right? And then testing and then maintenance. So what is this? So if you understand what waterfall means is that each phase has to be completed before the next phase gets started, right? So this is called waterfall model because one has to complete before the other starts. Now, the waterfall methodology was the most common project management approach which was used in the software development until it was surpassed by agile techniques, which happened somewhere in the late 2000, right? 2008, 2010. So this is what the waterfall approach is. Moving on, these are some statistics that have come out for companies which have been using waterfall approach. So there is this research group called Standish Group, right? They usually do a lot of polls and they do a lot of surveys on how the projects are being executed in the IT world, in the software world. So they ran a poll in 2011, which said that of all the features that were developed as part of an application or a software and deployed and went live, right, only 7% were used always all the time, right? 45% of those features or modules or features that were requested by the customer or the end users were never really used. 19% were rarely used, 16% sometimes, and 13% often. So why do you think this happened? Right, this happened why? Because in waterfall approach we actually try to talk about all the requirements, everything that we need in the start, right? So these are some of the things why it happened, right? Because the project managers and the stakeholders think that we have to give all the requirements right in the start, right? Because only after that is when we move on to the next phase. So they thought that they gave the requirements, everything that they needed, they thought that they needed, and everything that they thought they needed, and everything that they want, and everything that they may want later. So why did they give all this? Very important question to ask. Why? Because in a waterfall methodology, if we have crossed the requirement and the design phase, it is really difficult to get back and again say that I wanted a new feature or I want this to be done in a different way, right? Because the coding has already started, people would have written thousands of lines of code, right? And how do we go back? So the simple way to go back in a waterfall approach is called a change request, a CR. Change request is something that is a initiative which comes from the customer side saying that I actually wanted this to be done this way, but now I've realized that if we do it in this way, it will give better result, all right, or it will give an improved experience to the users, and let us do this. So now change request involves a lot of cost, a lot of cost is involved, right? And then why? Because you're paying, you want some additional work which involves resources, which involves time, right? So it involves financials. So that's why what the project managers and stakeholders do is try to take as much as information requirement and then move on to the next phase. So there are some statistics. So basically the group, the result, this the opinion that Standish Group came out was that a lot of millions of dollars are being wasted because of features which are not being used. Moving on, now this is what waterfall stand. We understood what waterfall is. Now we'll see some limitations of waterfall. So the first limitation is that the team must know all the requirements upfront to estimate. Right. This is one of the most important things. Now we as human beings are really bad at estimation, right? That's natural to us. A simple example is if you are meeting your friend and you tell him, if your friend asks you how long will you take to reach this point, right? A lot of calculation happens in your mind, that you're calculating the time, the distance, the traffic, and everything, and you'll tell him that I will reach in 10 minutes. But do you exactly reach in 10 minutes? No, you always reach at 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, right? So what does it mean? That it means that we as humans are really not great at taking in lot of external factors or internal factors, or lot of environmental factors when we are doing estimations or decisions for the future, right? And that is where the waterfall falls short, because we have to upfront make an estimation that this project might take 4 months, 6 months, 8 months to complete, and most of the time we are wrong because we miss to accommodate a lot of factors. Next, estimation is complex and requires high degree of competence and experience. Very true, right? Only if a person has done multiple projects in the past, or a company has done multiple similar projects in the past, is when it will be able to kind of come to a very close estimation that, yeah, for about 10 projects, we took about 6 months. So maybe this project will take about 7 or 8 months, but that is also a relative comparison. right? It is not an absolute comparison. So that's another shortfall of waterfall. Moving on, the customers and stakeholders may not be available to answer the questions all the time during the development period. Why? Because they've already invested a lot of time during the initial phase of requirement gathering. So what they assume is that, I had whatever I wanted as feature, I've already told them. So I might, I why should I again, keep collaborating with them? Why should I again keep telling them everything? Because I've already given them a week, 2 week, 3 weeks, a month, depending on how long this activity of requirement gathering went on for. The next shortfall is that the team will resist the addition of new requirements naturally, because the team would have planned their activities, the team would have planned their work, that this week we'll finish this month we will finish this, after 6 months we will finish this. But then when something new comes in, suddenly middle of while this development is happening, it's like disruption, right? The team will not like it because a lot of planning is already gone in the planning. Next is the team must create and maintain volumes of documentation, right? Now, this is another thing of waterfall because a lot of sign-offs happen, a lot of handoffs happen, right? For example, during the requirement phase, right? There's Word documents that we maintain, Excel sheets with regards to integrations, APIs, and other things. Then a lot of design documents are maintained, a lot of wireframes are maintained, lot of documents have to be maintained and managed. There are high level of chances that we miss a lot of features or important features because of having too much documentation. The other shortfall is, although some kind of testing happens at a development level whenever the developer writes a few lines of code, but the overall testing happens only in the end, right? As we saw in the previous slide, the testing is a different phase altogether. It's a different. Only after the development is done is when the testing happens. So that is again a shortfall. Why? Because there might be a high risk. The developer might not have tested it properly. The developer might not have used the best practice to write code, and it all comes out in the testing phase, which will simply elaborate or simply push the deadline because the codes were not written correctly, right? Other one is full and complete customer feedback is not possible until the end of the project. So what happens? Customer is involved initially during requirements and design, but then the customer really depends on the vendor or the person who's doing the work, that he would have understood my requirement. Now I told him the documents were signed off, and I will just look at the end product, right? So this is another shortfall. The customer is not really involved during while the coding is happening, the testing is happening, and other things. Now the funding is ongoing, right? The funding is ongoing, but the value appears only at the end of the project. So for example, right, there is a website that has to be launched, right? Now the customer will see the value only after all the features that were accommodated as part of this website, right? The user login, say maybe an e-commerce, maybe something like a cart, payments, and everything is established only at the end. So the customer really has to wait for the 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 1.5 year to actually start seeing the value of the investment. But however, the funding will happen every month or every 3 months or as per the milestone or as per the phase, right? And the last one is the project has to be fully complete for the value to be achieved. It is the same thing that we spoke. So these are some shortfalls of the waterfall model, right? Now we saw some shortfalls. Now agile is here to really it is a methodology which is kind of opposite of waterfall, right? So whatever limitations that we saw, agile tries to kind of identify those shortcomings and tries to address them in a very very nice way. We'll look at that in the coming slides. um, so this is a typical example, right, of how things work, right? For example, if you see here, this is what the customer wanted. He wanted a simple swing with a tire, right? This is what the customer wanted, but the business analyst actually understood that the customer wanted something like this, right? Because there's a lot of communication gap for whatever. Then the designer designed it this way, right? And and then some testing happened, and finally we gave this product to the customer. Why? Why did this happen? A simple question, a simple answer is because customer was not involved during these phases. If the customer was involved right in this phase, the second phase was the business, where the requirement was gathered, and when we really before giving it to the design team, we would have said, no, this is not what I want. But in waterfall, this never happens, right? We kind of take the decisions, we take the requirements, and then design is we take a sign off for the design. But eventually when it goes to the developer, he might not understand it the way the designer and the business analyst understood the requirement, because the business analyst and the designer is in constantly in touch with the customer. They are the focal points, right? But the developer is not. So that is why this happens, right? This is a very typical example used in the IT world, when we talk about agile. Now coming to agile, right? How did it all start? So in 2001, there were about 17 developers who met in US, right? And they were quite famous, and they were doing well in their field, but they really had hard time following the waterfall approach, right? And they were like, they got together and they gave their best ideas or the best approaches that they had accumulated over the years, and they called it the Agile Manifesto. So Agile Manifesto was a written and a signed, declared documents which said that, we as software developers, we are moving away from waterfall and we want to better service the customer by following certain values and certain principles. Now, what are these values is what we will see here, right? Let's go through the Agile values first. Now, these individuals, right, they also formed an organization called Agile Alliance. You can still Google it, and all the founding fathers, some of the founding fathers, like Jeff Sutherland. All these people are still there actively, preaching, and how beneficial Agile is to all the companies across the world. So let's quickly look at this because there's a lot of text here. Let's quickly go through it. So the basic values are very important. The manifesto, right, which declares, it says that the first values individuals and interactions over processes and tools, which means a lot of interaction needs to happen between the individuals. And one of the things that they say, if you come here on the principles in which we will in a bit, says that a lot of face-to-face interaction needs to happen, right? Using a lot of communication, like a mail communication, waiting for the other person to respond saying that I have this issue, I'm not able to go forward, will really not work. We really need to have some kind of a individual interaction. So they suggested something called a stand up, a daily stand up, wherein the team meets for 15 minutes every day, face to face, right? And then they say that this is what I did yesterday, this is what I plan to do today, but because I have to do this today, I have a dependency on something. And these people really collaborate and resolve it. So we will look into it in a little details, but this is the value. They say that processes and tools are there, right? We value them, but there is more value in individual interaction. Moving on to the second agile value, which is working software over comprehensive documentation. So working software, see, comprehensive documentation, something like a charter. For example, to name a few, we have a project charter, we have a project plan, we have a risk document, we have an issue document, we have so many other documents, right? And this is what we maintain, and then we show it to the clients on a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting, right? Which what Agile feels is this does not have a value. What we should ideally be doing over a week or every 2 weeks is show the application, show the actual product to the customer and take their feedback. Right? That is the meaning of working software over comprehensive documentation. The third value is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Right. So what do you mean by contract negotiation? We spoke about change request. Right. So now if the customer wants a new change, we will get back to the contract. That contract says if you want a change request, you need to send the form. We will evaluate the form. We will say how many hours, additional hours we need to do this. Right. A lot of contract negotiation happens. Customer says no, I'd already told you this earlier. Maybe you missed to put it in your requirements. Lot of negotiations happen, right? A lot of time is wasted. Agile believes in customer collaboration. Now, how do we do that? We will see that later, right? We have something called iterations, we have something called sprints that we plan where customer is involved in every phase, and a lot of collaboration happens between the customer, right? And we actually take the change. Change is something that is really accepted in Agile in methodology rather than how it is in Waterfall, where people are really scared to, ask for a change because it will disrupt the whole plan that was earlier made. Now, moving on to the last value, right? Responding to change or following a plan. Now, this is again very simple. Following a plan, right? There is something called adaptive and predictive approach, right? What is an adaptive approach? Adaptive approach is we adapt to the changes of a market. Say, for example, right? A website, a customer wants to create a website, and he says a vendor to create a website. So he wanted a very basic website, right? Using HTML, CSS. This for some non-IT folks who are on the webinar, these are some basic technologies. These do not involve too much of time or effort. But then the customer realized that there is a competitor who just launched a website, and it is a very beautiful looking website with a lot of dynamic kind of a feel. So the customer comes and says that I want you to make it like that, but he's already given a contract to us for an HTML. I'm just giving an example here. Now that technology is a React. The name of the technology which is very dynamic is React. Right now, what happens? We have already made a plan that we will do this, and the timeline is thing, right? Now we are really not, the customer is not satisfied, the company is not satisfied, because we are giving a product to the customer which is below the par of its competitor, right? But then agile says respond to change. Respond to change in the sense, the customer, if it's an agile project, he can come and say, okay, you've done this, but for the remaining, I want it to be very dynamic, and I heard there is a technology called React which I want you to use. Or the customer can just tell that, I want it to be dynamic, and we, as a vendor who's doing the project for customer, will inform the customer that there is technology A, B, C, D that you can use to make it more dynamic, right? So this is a small example of how we respond to change in agile, rather than following a very strict plan and staying to it. Moving on to the 12 principles behind the Agile Manifesto. This is a lot of things to discuss here, but I will quickly go through each one of them so that we finish it in the next 2 minutes, keeping in mind that there's a lot of other content that has to be covered. So it says that our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of a valuable software. Naturally, we spoke about this. Now, business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. Now, very, very important thing, right? In a waterfall, generally what happens is, when a proposal is sent by the client to the vendor, it is generally the project manager or technical manager who plans the estimation, right? Who says that, these are the tasks that might require, and this is what, the time that will be required to finish this. But in agile, it says the business people and the developer must work together. That means these are the people who are making a decision there, right? The developer who is actually doing the work will tell, I will need 2 days to finish this, I will need 1 day to finish this, which means the estimation are more realistic and they are more adaptive, right? So moving on, working software is the primary measure of the progress. Naturally, we spoke about it here. uh, Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. So keeping it simple, and measuring the work which is always done. Welcoming change, we spoke about this, that the change is something that is really appreciated in agile. Build projects around motivated individuals, give them the environment and the support they need. So we will talk about teams, right? We will talk about what agile teams are, how are they in the future series. But in this, to just to give you a gist of it, we form a team of close to 3 to 9 members, right? A Scrum team or an Agile team is not more than 3 to 9 members, and we try to. And this is a dedicated team. They do not work on multiple projects. Like for example, in waterfall methodology, the other thing that we use is, we share the resources, right? One resource is working on project A, B, C, D, right? But in Agile, the resources are committed to the project, right? We have about 3 to 9 is the team. Generally, we have about 4 to 5 people, which includes maybe a solution architect, maybe a developer, a tester, the product owner who gets the requirement from the clients and things. So it's a very motivated team, and they work together. So the word here that we really need to use is called self-organizing and cross-functional teams. So there is less of management, right? We do not have a project manager who's constantly asking them that do this, you have to do this task today and all that. They are self-organizing and they're cross-functional. If they have any issue, they talk to each other and they know what has to be done to deliver the sprint or an iteration. What is an iteration? Iteration is something, rather than having a full phase, right? For example, in waterfall, we saw that a phase starts and ends after the complete, say for example, requirement or development is over. But in iteration, what happens? We divide that work. For example, iteration means continuity, a repetition, right? So iteration, we plan a week iteration or 2 weeks iteration, which is in agile world called as sprint. Sprint means the work is broken down into different iterations or different repetitions, say of a week or two, wherein we deliver a working software to the client and show them that we developed this in the past 2 weeks and this is how it looks. The customer shares the feedback, says yes, I accept it, or he says no, this is not what I wanted. The changes are again taken and the team works again, right? So the team is a very highly motivated team. Moving to number 8, the most efficient and effective way of conveying information is face-to-face conversation, which you already spoke. So I will just skip the remaining things. Why? Because whatever we spoke on the agile values is the same thing which the principles have, but uh, it is a little more elaborate. If you have questions on these, we can probably take it in the end, or we can have it in the future sessions if you want us to really explain the principles, right? So I will move on considering the uh, time. Now, like I said, agile approach is an empirical control, right, based on realities that are observed in the project and frequent and first-hand inspection. So there are three main things that we need to remember. Everyone involved in the agile project knows what is going on, right? So, for example, if you take a waterfall approach, it is generally the project manager who gives the update to the customer, right? The customer really has to trust the project manager, assuming that, yeah, if customer says 53% of work is done, that yes, 53% of the work is done. But that does not happen in agile. Agile, we really show that the work is done and the customer is really able to evaluate, go through it, and then give us feedback. So everybody in the project knows what's going on, right? And the people who are invested in the process are able to evaluate, are they getting the return on investment, right? That they invested so much money so far, and have they really got the worth of that money? They are able to easily evaluate, but that does not happen in the case of a waterfall methodology, right? So here, if you see on the left, right, we saw waterfall, right, one after the other. Here, if you see, the planning, design, build, test happens over a sprint, which I said is an iteration. This can be 1 week, 2 weeks, but as per the Agile Manifesto or as per the best practice, each sprint should not cross more than 4 weeks. That is a general practice. So once you finish this, you move on to the next sprint. You take the feedback of the customer. You take the changes that they wanted. You go on until the product or the application is completely launched. Now, moving on, what are the different methodologies or the different approaches that you can take in, within Agile to adapt to your projects? The most famous approach is called Scrum, right? This is something. There was a pool that was run, and in the companies, you will see some companies which are using Agile in the future slides. They said that about 64% of the companies use Scrum. So Scrum is very easy. It is something that is very easily understood. People can easily understand it and can easily implement it. The other technique is Kanban. We will not talk more about this. I'm just giving you a very high level. If required, if required, maybe we can have a session later going through some high level details of what these are. The other one is Lean, and then there is something called XP, right? And then we have something called Dynamic Systems Development Method. We have Crystal Method. We have Feature Driven Development. So we will not talk about this. We will talk about Scrum in the next series. It's a very interesting topic on how a team is formed, right? How we take the requirements from the client, which is called as backlog, and how do we prioritize the backlog? How do we know what is the critical feature that we want to take in the, for example, you see sprint 1 year. What is the most critical feature that the customer wants? For example, somebody is creating an e-commerce app. What is the first thing that he wants on the app, right? We try to accommodate critical features here, important features, and then next sprint we take the less critical and then go on like that. So how do we approach that? It's a very interesting topic. How do we estimate it? Now, we spoke that estimation is not easy, right? Humans are not good at estimation. How do we estimate in Scrum? It's a very interesting topic which we will see in the future series. So I'll move on now. What are the benefits of Agile? Improved quality, number one. So how is it improved quality? The customer is able to evaluate it every week. He will tell, no, I do not like the product, right? Or there's a lot of bugs. I gave the URL or the app, for my team to just go through it, and there are so many apps or and so many bugs or so many issues that are cropping up, or the app is loading very slow. I don't like it. Right? Immediately the team will identify what is making the app laggy or why is it lagging, and they immediately work rather than waiting until the end. So that's one of the benefits, improved quality. Focus on business value. Like I said earlier, somebody is waiting for the website to be delivered after 6 months. In a waterfall methodology in Scrum, he can see that the first 1 or 2 pages saying that we are launched, and giving a few details of what is coming in the future. That website can be launched by the customer in 1 month or 2 months. Right, giving immediate business value compared to a waterfall model. Focus on users. So users are very important because when, like we said, when some app or an app or a application is created, the users will eventually use it and then give their immediate feedback, right? So it focuses on users. So for example, there might be a procurement department which releases an RFP saying that this is what the project needs to have, this is the requirement, right? But they would have not really consulted with the end users. This should have been done by the senior manager or a manager, just assuming that this is what he wants, right? But eventually when the project is completed after months of investment of funding and the cost, the users will not like it. They will say that no, this is as good as the old system. So I mean, we were better off using the old system. So that's what happens. But here the users are really given an opportunity to use and then give their feedback so that we can make it more user friendly. Transparency. There are no hidden costs. It's not like we said the technology that we are using is very high, and then when you get the product in the end, we've used some the vendor has used some some other technology which is not very user friendly. We are very transparent. The During agile, the project is very transparent. People know what technology is being used, what is being used, what task is done, what is the completion date, everything. Predictable cost and schedule. So now again, for example, right, the same example of launching a website. So the first sprint we launch the web page, the main page. Second sprint we launch some other additional features. Third, we launch something where the customer can book. Right now, the other two sprints, the last two modules is something where customer can pre-book. Assume this is a book a website, right, where the customer can go and order books. But the customer realizes that right now my costs do not let me have that module, but I'm good with whatever is being done so far. The customer can immediately ask the vendor to stop. Right, he can say, maybe there'll be some contractual obligation saying that the customer has to inform the vendor maybe 15 days in advance, or if he stops immediately, there is some small amount that the vendor has to pay, so that the resources are resources are built until they are moved to a different project. Something contract will be there, but then the customer has the predictability to stop the project once he feels satisfied. He does not have to wait until the end of the project. Right, so cost and schedule is another benefit. Early and predictable delivery. This is what I just told you, right? Just in the previous example, that the customer wants to stop where he feels that the product has started giving him the value, the business value he started achieving. Then he can stop, and maybe he can say, I will do the remaining, the things that I wanted maybe after 6 months, after 8 months. But right now, I want to stop because I've started seeing the business value. So this is another benefit of agile. This is again the difference. Agile and waterfall, we've already spoken about this, so I will not get into detail. I'll just highlight a couple of points here. Agile is perfect for IT and software projects and marketing. Waterfall is perfect for long-term projects like construction or manufacturing. Naturally, because we know if you are building a house or a bridge, we know that pillar has to be done before after we do the ceiling. So when we have a solid requirement, understanding of the requirement, that is where waterfall can be used. But for something which is in IT or software, where the technology is changing so fast, right, new technologies emerge every 3 months, 6 months, it becomes very difficult, right, to adapt. So in waterfall, so that's one thing that agile is good at. Other things we've already spoken, like how feasible it is to change, go for the requirement, or the the design change and other things. So here, if you see, in waterfall, right, the scope is fixed. Right, we fix on the scope and say this has to be delivered, and we keep estimating the resources and time. Right, but it is the opposite in agile, where the resources and time is fixed. We say that these are the resources who will work. This is the scrum team, or this is the agile team, and this is the time that the team has evaluated, and the scope can change as per the customer intent. Right, it can change. Customer wants to prioritize something, take off something, says I don't want this at all. Yes, we are ready to accommodate that. Okay, moving on. um, Now, these we'll see some kind of contracts, right, that are followed in traditional waterfall approach or in agile. So, what are contracts? Contracts are legally binding agreements between minimum two different legal entities, named as a buyer and seller, right? So this involves financials. Now, what are some traditional contracts? I'm sure all of you must have know this, but I think agile contracts will be something new, right? That we will learn and understand today. So, what are some traditional contracts? Fixed price contract. We will study. We will learn about them in detail. And then in traditional, we have fixed price contract, cost reimbursable contract, and time and material. In agile, we have something called target cost, incremental delivery contract, and time and material contract. So if you see here, right, time and material is the only contract which is common in both traditional and agile. And we will talk about this on why this is used in agile. Even though we've completely moved away from all the things, why have they maintained this kind of contract? We can talk about the advantages of this. Now we are talking about the traditional contracts, right? What is a fixed price contract? Fixed price contract is where when the scope is clearly defined and the requirements are well understood. Right, example I gave you of building a house or a bridge, or manufacturing or construction. Once the scope is clearly defined, it is expected that the seller will produce a fixed price quotation for the agreed scope of work. This is a fixed price contract, right? And the payments are made based on how the customer wants the delivery to happen, maybe in terms of phases or some kind of a milestone, right? But very important thing to notice in a fixed price contract is that the seller, right, the vendor, has all the risk. Why? because in the initial the requirements are spoken of and they are captured and the time is fixed. But then the client suddenly realizes that no, I want additional requirement, or I want a new technology, or maybe he missed to add something. For example, in real life scenarios, right, we see that there was a system that the client was maintaining, say for example an Oracle system or a SAP system, and then we've developed a system using a Microsoft technology. Now the both the technologies need to talk to each other, right? In we call this API, wherein both two technologies or two programs, sorry, not technology, two programs kind of talk to each other while giving the requirement, right? The customer would have missed, that there is something called API which has to be given, and later in the project they realize that our systems are not compatible, right? We really do not have an API. So what happens here? The scope is fixed, the time is fixed. The project simply gets extended and the resources are waiting. There is no work, and we wait for the customer to give us the API. We've seen this happen in real life scenario. So here what is happening? All the risk is on the seller side, right? And once the fixed price contracts are finalized, they use something called change request, which we already spoke earlier. Right? There are three different flavors of fixed price contract, which is known as firm fixed price with incentive, and fixed price with economic price adjustment. We will not talk about this in detail, but simply it means that there is some incentive. For example, the vendor delivers the project a little faster. There is some incentive that is given. So these are some contracts like that. I don't want to get into detail. Let's move on to cost reimbursable. What is cost reimbursable? In cost reimbursable contract, the buyer pays the actual cost incurred by the seller with an additional fee or profit. That means the client says, I want this to be done. The vendor says, okay. And he does, he has the resources, he gets the material, he uses the technology, the systems, and everything. And then he bills that to the client. Here, the risk is completely on client because the client has no idea what is the billing that he's going to get at the end of the month. Because it depends on what technology the vendor is using, how many resources is he using to get that achieved, right? So the entire risk is on the client, on the buyer, because he really does not know what will he be billed at the end of the month or end of the project, right? For example, see, cost plus contracts put all the risk on the buyer as the seller is assured of all the actual cost. So the seller will get his cost, but here the buyer or the client is really, he really finds it difficult because he does not have a real life estimation. So this is a cost reversible contract. What is time and material? Time and material is a very popular contract, right? Which balances the risk, that comes from the fixed price as well as the cost reversible. Here, what happens, right? The TMN contracts, the organization selects preferred suppliers for manpower and materials, right? They will be a negotiated price for each supply. For example, there are 10 people required to do the job. The rate card or the number of the price, for individual per individual per hour is calculated basis on hour, on a day, on a month or a week. And then apart from along with some other expenses like the system licenses and other software licenses and other things are captured and are informed to the buyer that these are the resources, which these are the number of hours our resources will work, and this is the billing that you will get. So here there is a flexibility for both buyer and seller in a way that both understand number of the cost that will come out at the end of the month, because both are aware, right? The buyer knows will have some value that okay, these are the number of hours that the vendor is planned to put, and the vendor also knows that these are the number of hours that I'll have to put. Right? This is a very simple contract which balances the risk that both the buyer and the seller have in the previous two contracts. Now coming to agile contracts, if I have to put it in a very simple words, right? The target cost or cost targeted contract is somewhat similar to the fixed price contract. So in this kind of contract, both the parties agree on a realistic final price of the product. Then, if the supplier comes under budget, that means he is not able to perform. Both the parties share. If he does it below the allocated budget, then both the parties share the benefits. For example, 100,000 is what was the price, right? Both the parties agreed that they will do. And if the project is done within $80,000, the 20,000 that was a saving is shared by both the parties, right? And if the supplier, in the opposite scenario where the supplier was not able to finish it within that budget, if it crosses to 120, the 20,000 is again shared. So the vendor puts 10,000, and the loss is shared among both the parties. So this is what the target cost. This is something that is used in agile contracts, right? The difficult part of this is that to come up with a realistic price again, because we again lot of estimation comes here, and this is difficult to estimate. One company which has used this contract and has been really successful is Toyota, right? And they have really long-term relationship with their suppliers. So this is the target cost or cost targeted contract. Moving on, incremental delivery. This is where, remember we spoke about the sprints or iterations. This is a model where the vendor gets paid by the client for every iteration. For example, a sprint was of 1 week or 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, the client evaluates the number of hours, or for each sprint there is a pre-agreed budget, right? And they give that budget after the sprint is completed, right? Now here is an option where the client can take that product. If he's really satisfied, he can cancel the contract. Not satisfied, he can cancel the contract. If he wants some changes, he can tell the customer, the vendor, that these are the changes that I require, and then it goes on. So it is based, this payment or cost is done based on the delivery each sprint, right? For example, consider a year-long contract that has inspection points every quarter, right? Every quarter, every 3 months, the team meets up, and we are doing 2 week sprints. That means we have 6 sprints. When the customer decides either to continue the contract or not. So this is a very simple contract based on the iterations of the sprints done. Right. Moving on, time and material. We are back to the same thing here. The organization pays for the number of hours that the resources have put into in the project. So these are some agile contract types, and the orthodox or the traditional contract types that we follow. So with this, I finished today's webinar. I think we have 10 minutes left. So this is just a gist of, or this is the plan of what we plan to do in the future series. We will look in depth on what is Scrum. So we spoke about Agile, right? And we spoke that Scrum is one of the most important methodologies of Agile. So what is Scrum, right? So when we spoke so much about waterfall, that it has so many disadvantages and Agile can really help. How can it help, right? How do we take the requirements? How do we prioritize it, right? How do we segregate it? How do we know which is most critical, which is not critical? And once we have that, right, how do the resources plan their work? How do they estimate, right? So here there is something called relative estimation and absolute estimation, right? So we use a lot of relative estimation techniques. What is relative and absolute? For example, if I have to tell you, for example, Toyota Camry, right? If I ask you what is the weight of the car, right? People, it will range somewhere between, say, maybe 600 kgs to 1000 kgs to 1500 kgs. That is an absolute thing that I'm asking. But if I tell you, what do you think is the weight of a Toyota Camry compared to a truck, which is twice the size, right? And the weight of the truck is 1000 kgs. Very easily people can say that maybe it will be around 450 kgs or 500 kgs. That means we are doing a relative kind of a comparison, right? So we do such things in Scrum. We kind of take a task and try to see how are the other tasks related to that, right? How soon can we do it? So good. It's very interesting way of estimating. And then some metrics, right? We have something like a burn down chart on where we try to see the velocity of the team. Velocity means what is the work that is that is completed compared to what was planned, right? We have few metrics on how do we track things. And then some Scrum tools, like what are the tools, what are the latest tools in the market which really help the companies to become agile, or become agile, and also get into contracts with vendors where the vendor is working in an agile environment. Something like Jira, which is a very famous tool. There is Asana. There are a lot of tools. We will talk about those. So this is something which will come in series 2. So with this, I end the webinar, and I ask Nazir to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaji, for a very informative presentation. And I think there was a lot of content in the previous slides. I believe the attendees really got sort of insight into, and we'll share this presentation for your review and also the recorded session. So we have another 15 minutes for Q&A. If you would like to use the Q&A chat window, you can use. Otherwise, you can raise your hand. Vaji can unmute your mic.
Hi, Mr. Ganesh.
Hi. Sure. My question is here. So, agile methodologies and microservices. What is the major difference here? Because in agile methodologies, what we do is we split the the entire project into different parts and bits, and accordingly we'll execute the projects, right? So,
Yes, yes.
but how about the microservices in that case? Is it the same, or there is some kind of the major differences with these two?
See, microservices is an architecture level kind of a framework that we look at, right, which arranges the application,
Mhm.
which have kind of similar thing, right, which it's an architecture level. But we are talking about a framework to execute the project, which
Okay.
is agile. So we
Mm.
are talking about two different things here.
Okay.
Yeah.
This always confused confused me.
No, no, no. So that is an application architecture, right? Microservices. But
Okay.
this is something. So that is like, for example, you have applications. You have different applications. How can you divide? If you have a monolithic application, right? How
Mhm.
do you make it work more better by making into smaller chunks, right? That is microservices. But we are talking
Okay.
not about application. We are talking about if there is a project and how are which is the best way to run that
Okay.
project. It's a waterfall. We are not saying that waterfall is a bad way, but we are saying that waterfall is good when we know what the end requirement is compared to something
Mm-hmm.
where we don't know and the market is constantly
Mm.
changing. And, yeah, thank you for that question, Ganesh. Hello, Mr. Moise.
Yeah, thank you very much for the informative session. It's covering overall introduction of what and I just want to one suggestion. I'm looking forward to your session for series of this Scrum, which will cover. But one point is most of the organization they replied that they are using waterfall model, right? So if
Yes.
somebody wants to move to Scrum from waterfall to Scrum,
Yeah.
so if there is some guidelines or as per your experience, what should be the steps to move to Scrum? Uh, that I will be looking forward in your next session.
Thank
That
you
is
so much.
the only thing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moise, first of all, for attending the webinar and for this valuable input. I think yes, I think this is a very fair ask, and I think we will keep couple of slides or probably a separate webinar on how do we do adoption, agile adoption in the organizations. Because we are a company. To tell you honestly, we do both waterfall as well as agile because we are a vendor and we need to support the kind of environment that the customer wants is in and wants us to do. So in that way probably I think we will be able to give you insights on how we manage to have both, or we plan to completely move to agile. So that's how we are currently working with, and I think we will definitely keep a session on
Thank you very much.
that. Yes, Mr. Shivu.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. I want to know the testing methodologies for this Scrum in environment. So, what is a procedure for testing?
So first of all, yeah, thanks for the question, Mr. Shivu. So first of all, right, testing happens as part of the sprint. So we use tools like Jira, right? We use automation testing, which can happen using Jira, which we currently use. We also have one more tool called Azure DevOps Boards, which comes as a pack of the Microsoft suite, right? So we are using that also. Depends on the kind of license that the client has. We can use this. So these tools is where we capture so there is something called user story, right, or a requirement that the user gives us. So for every user story, we have an acceptance criteria which can be captured in these tools. And then
Okay.
we have separate tools like Selenium or JMeter where we can do automation testing or load testing, performance testing that can happen separately. And it is very easier to run scripts there when you have captured the test cases and the acceptance criteria in any of these tools like Jira or Azure DevOps Boards.
Okay, so what about this documentations and all?
So same thing. So for example, if we are doing manual testing, for example, taking a word and writing, when you open the website, it should launch this page. Example, right? So the same thing, we will put it in the Azure DevOps Boards and also put an acceptance criteria, and it automatically, kind of runs that. So it is much easier way of doing it, and we follow that in Agile.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So before we really wrap up, I'd like to thank all of you for joining our webinar, and really looking forward to the series of webinar on this particular topic and more. In fact, we have another webinar tomorrow on an interesting document exchange process automation. So please join us tomorrow also. and also looking forward to seeing you on the next webinar on Agile project delivery. So thank you, Vaji, for a wonderful presentation. And I believe this really added value to our customers' time today. Thank you all for joining today.
Thank you, Nazir, and thanks everyone. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.